What the hell does this have to do with Thanksgiving? Hello everybody, my name is Zach, and we're going to be reviewing Flesh and Blood today. Shout out to MyMy648, he suggested that I watch Flesh and Blood because that's another good Into the Dark movie. So I did, and let's go ahead and get into it. So Flesh and Blood is based around Thanksgiving, and that's one of my first gripes. This movie has nothing to do with Thanksgiving. Some people might say, you better not dock points for that. If you ever watched Iron Chef, if you don't add the special ingredient that they give you, and it doesn't taste like that ingredient that you promised you were going to give them, then you're going to get docked points. The dish is okay, it's just that there's no Thanksgiving zest in it. To be honest, when I watched this episode, I thought it was a Father's Day episode. Which would have made more sense if this was a, Father's Day episode, because this episode is about a father that may or may not be a serial killer, and the daughter is trapped inside the house with him, so it just makes more sense as a Father's Day episode. We follow Kimberly, a teenager that has a bad case of agoraphobia, which is kind of like just another way of saying if you go outside your house, you have ridiculous anxiety. Basically, she has panic attacks every time she goes outside the house, so that's a problem. And the antagonist of the movie is the father of Kimberly. What's interesting about the first half of this movie is that you don't know who's crazy, because Kimberly might have some sort of mental sickness, but the father could possibly be a serial killer himself too, so you're kind of on the ropes. You're who's really crazy here, And I think that's pretty interesting. It begs the question, is the dad being protective of his sick daughter, or is he hiding her in her room for other purposes, It would have been masterful writing if the writers would have just kind of kept that going, I wanted them to keep that going where you really didn't know who was crazy or, who was sane, It was one of those things where I wish it was kind of like Hamlet, where people can kind of debate about it even after the fact of the story, which would have been cool. But after the halfway point in this movie, there's no mystery element to it anymore. You know who the crazy person is. This particular Into the Dark movie has probably the best acting that I've seen so far. It's basically on par, or if better, than the Culture Shock episode. I really like how the actor portrayed the father in this movie. He portrays him with a very gentle, kind of caring personality at first, but then he has these streaks of aggression, or let's say he has a temper. And I like how they portrayed that character. Does this guy have mental issues? Is he a crazy serial killer? Or is he one of those people with the personality where it's calm waters run deep? He might be very calm most of the time, but when he gets angry, he's just it kind of bursts out of him real quick and he has this short burst of temper. You don't know. You're trying to figure that out. Because a lot of the time he just kind of seems like a caring but stern father. The actor who plays Kimberly is also very good at portraying her emotions, and it really shows in this movie. When she has panic attacks in this movie, it feels as though, almost yourself when you're watching the movie, that your, throat closes up and you're actually going to pass out. She's really good at doing that. It was spot on. And when she's afraid, she seems legitimately afraid, and I really like that too. It was just great acting all around in this movie. What's also pretty cool about this movie is that it's a contained horror movie. What I mean by contained horror movie is that the set is very small. It's very localized. It's only in a house, It's in a small house, and the only characters in the movie are two characters. There's the father, and there's Kimberly, and that is it. Which is actually really great for horror movies because it makes the set and the characters feel more claustrophobic, which is always good in horror. The problem with the movie is the halfway point in this movie. It's the writers showed their whole hand, all their cards, and they didn't have anything left after the halfway point. The audience knows what's going on at this point, and there's no mystery element anymore. It ends up diluting the last half of the movie into basically a simple escape movie than a mystery or that element of who's crazy and who's not crazy. After the halfway point, you know everything in this movie, and it basically just becomes a survive and get out sort of movie, and that's kind of it at that point. What I think happened is that this movie should have been a short film, not a feature-length hour-and-a-half movie, and that kind of brings the movie down in a sense. Because it seems like they desperately tried to find more content to put in the movie, and the last half of the movie kind of just drags out for way too long. It was by the halfway point, and a little bit on, I was just come on, get to the climax of the movie. Get to the climax, because right now it's boring, and that really slows down the movie to a crawl, and that's just not good for pacing. The movie wasn't bad at all by any means. It's just that near the halfway point, it feels like you're not getting the bite-sized bits that you wanted. It feels like empty bits at that point. And it feels like you could almost like cut a huge portion of the movie out and make it into a short film, which I would have rather seen. So personally, Flesh and Blood gets a B- from me. But thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely like, share, and subscribe if you like my content. Click the little bell if you want notifications as well. And definitely comment below. I want to see what you guys think about this movie if you've already watched it. Especially you, the guy that I shouted out, My648. And until next time, you guys, see ya!